but internally in Vibram, there wasn't the interest, and it's a shame because like earthing's the hidden elixir of health, where very few people actually understand how much gold there is for just taking your shoes off and running around on either grass or sand or stone. It's one of the healthiest things you can do, and something that we've been programmed to do since the beginning of time.
FC2O. From chaos to order. From chaos to order. Here we go. From chaos to order. From chaos to order. FC2O.
Hello, welcome back to FC2O. And of course, this is FC2O AI, our first episode with Archie and Isabella using the AI technology. And we've got Cedric with us, of course. And today we're interviewing Alun Biggart, who's been a friend of mine for many, many years. It's even in the decades now. And he's a very successful businessman. Our business paths have crossed many a time as Czech students and him being a Czech distributor and me being a Czech instructor, and then we distributed Five Fingers respectively in our own countries. So Alun and I have had paths which have interlinked, and now he's brought out his new range of earthing shoes. So we're going to talk about earthing a fair bit in this podcast. But as you will see, here's a sort of sharp cookie, if that's the right term. He also mixes with the hoi polloi a little bit of our world. So he has people like Gabor Mate on his books, and Bruce Lipton stayed with him, and of course Paul Chek. He's spent time with the Dalai Lama, so he's a cool cat. So anyway, I'm sure you will enjoy the show. Here we go. Welcome to FC2O AI with me, Matt Walden, and
Archie Walden,
Isabella Walden,
and our guest today, Alun Biggart. Alun, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm missing you, buddy, and it's wonderful to see your gorgeous kids.
Thank you. Yeah, we should have got your kids on as well. It would have been a proper party.
a big horror show.
Exactly. Well, today we're going to be talking a bit about our history together, but also where we're at in terms of our latest business venture. So I know that Archie and Bella have got some questions for you. So do you want to start out with a question?
Yeah, I'll start out. So if we're staying on the topic of business and business ventures, let's start at the beginning and ask you, how did you start in the business world?
I started in the business world when I was probably about Isabella's age, and that was selling a hot energy drink called Maxim, which was made with something called maltodextrin glucose polymers, and it was the first one on the market, and that was back in 1992, and it was just after the time that the same company had given Linford Christie something called creatine that propelled him to the Olympic gold in Barcelona. So that was it. In 1992, the business started, and for me, it was just like playing Lego. It was just like building something with Lego, and it turned into an amazing journey that took me from Glasgow to Copenhagen and living in Denmark for the last 30 years. Where I thought I was going to be a professional badminton player, but I ended up building a business and then selling it. And then that's where I met your dad through a mutual crazy friend called Paul Chek.
They're aware of my crazy friend, Paul Chek.
Yeah. And Paul's been a big part of our lives in that he's given us a formula for looking after our bodies. Which we still use most of it today. I presume you do as well, Matt, because you're still looking young.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the start point, wasn't it, with Maxim? And then we met with Paul. And do you want to sort of continue with the story from there?
Yeah, well, it went like crazy. I mean, I didn't imagine what was going to happen with selling energy drinks and protein powders and stuff like that. And we ended up having a couple million pound business. And the more I got into it, the more I was concerned about the quality of the ingredients and looking at seeing if we could make stuff healthier. And then it was actually at a lecture with Paul that your dad was at, where Paul started talking about aspartame and all the colors and things like that. And that was just like the straw that broke the camel's back. I thought, okay, I'm getting out of here one way or the other, because I tried to reformulate stuff. I tried to find organic stuff, and I found some really great organic bars and some organic ingredients. But 20 years ago, people weren't interested in it. They were just interested in big muscles, and they didn't really care, or a flat stomach. They didn't really care how they got it. So I sold it to a venture capital company, which financially was the stupidest thing I'd ever done. But, in terms of quality of life, it was the best thing I ever did. And then I just started a website writing about health and nutrition and sleep and lifestyle and personal development, spirituality. And that's brought a lot of exciting teachers into Matt's world, your dad's world, and my world. We've had Bruce Lipton, Nick Vujicic, David Perlmutter. We've given Mate coming next month to 2,000 people in an indoor arena.
Some real, these names you guys might not be that familiar with, but these are real top tier authors and presenters in our kind of world of rehabilitation and spiritual development and new age and so on, psychology. So these are people that are very difficult to get into an auditorium if you don't already have contacts with them. And Alan's done an amazing job at developing a model that encourages these people to come and work with him, which is very interesting. We might have to move into that a little bit later. But so
and Gabriel Mate is really important for you, Archie, because when you're traumatized by your dad's parenting, it's his books you should go and read.
Thanks for that, Alan. Appreciate it. So you've done your Maxim business, you've sold it, and then next step.
Well, basically started the online universe that we have, and it's got three legs. One, we do live events with speakers. Two, we do online events where we offer online courses. We started that 3 years ago, and we already have had 80,000 people through the online courses. There's a free part of it where people can get some really good tools to help them on their journey. And then if they're interested, they can buy full courses. And then we have a shop where we sell healthy products.
Yeah. So one thing I don't think we will have made completely clear to the listeners so far is that obviously you've got a Scottish accent. So you're from Scotland, living in Denmark because you're an elite badminton player. And a lot of people I don't think would realize that Denmark is it the second tier country in the world for badminton or something like that? One of the top ones.
Well, it's one of the top ones. My friend just won the Olympic gold medal yesterday for the second time in a row.
Really? Oh wow!
So he's like the king of badminton just now. And the Danish king went and congratulated him, and he actually said, "Okay, Victor, you're king today."
That's excellent. So, so that's how you ended up in Denmark, was because you're playing elite badminton.
Yeah. I basically studied sports physiology, and when I finished my degree, I had four choices: do a PhD, get a job, do medicine, or come to Denmark and play badminton. And then I took the energy drink and creatine with me over to Denmark and started a company, and was lucky enough to play with two of my friends, one who was Olympic champion in 96 and the other one won world championships in 97. And they were really kind and loving, and they said to me, "Alan, get a job." So I focused more on building a business than I did on playing badminton, but still, enjoyed playing it at a good level.
Yeah. Excellent. So then I was explaining to the kids yesterday when we were just sort of planning a little bit for today's meeting, that one of your goals, I think you stated to me at least, was that you wanted to become the Danish Dr. McCullough in terms of that was a kind of Dr. McCullough's newsletter. Obviously, many people will know what that is, but McCullough had the world's biggest health newsletter, right? Yeah, and so you were aiming, I think, at some point that was part of your mission statement was to essentially become the McCullough of Denmark, or to have a health letter, let's say a health newsletter that was at that kind of level. Is that correct? If I remember that accurately?
I think so, Matt. I mean, we must have talked about that 20 years ago. I mean, I've achieved that goal. I think probably 10 years ago. So I'd forgotten about that. So thanks for reminding me. I mean, I think now it's the goal is just to do what I can on a daily basis to help other people on their journey. And what I'm finding now is the most important thing to do is help build communities.
Yeah.
It's help find a safe place for people to thrive, which after COVID is even more important.
Yeah, absolutely. You got any questions, Bella? She's just enjoying the discussion.
Sorry, yeah, no. You mentioned Paul Check earlier, and so obviously Check training. What kind of just made you, I don't know, go from? Well, I suppose we kind of talked about that, didn't we?
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah.
I don't know. Did you have?
Why did you decide to start the track training?
Yeah, what kind of turned you?
No, I didn't know it at the time, Isabella, but I think it was my intuition. I saw a picture of Paul training on a Swiss ball, on an exercise ball, and I think my intuition just guided me there. I use my intuition every day. It's like my guiding hand of the universe. I don't think I understood what it was then, and I'm glad I did. I went to a 2-day workshop in Eastbourne. It must have been about 2001. That's where I met your dad, and then I brought Paul to Denmark.
I was gonna say, when you said you moved to Denmark, I was gonna say, do you think that was just because you just felt like it was the right thing to do, like going and playing badminton, and then it opened up options for you when you were in Denmark?
I think it was two-sided, Archie. One, I was, let's say, socially challenged. So I didn't have that much in Scotland apart from playing badminton. And two, I just wanted to go and see if I could get good at playing the sport. So in one sense, it was a little bit of an escape, and the other sense, it was,
pursuing a dream, I suppose.
Yeah, it was a dream, and the guy I was originally going to work with he was an absolute nutter. And I was close to not going. And I remember sitting in the living room with my dad, and he just said, you've got enough money to last for 6 months. Go. The worst thing that can happen is you have an experience of a lifetime and learn some really good tools that'll help you no matter where you do. Just go.
One of the things that's always struck me about you, Alun, is that you mentioned it earlier, that you use your gut feeling quite a lot. And I remember whenever I've stayed with you, there've been various self-help type resources playing in the background, and Nightingale Conant stuff, and some of these authors that you've mentioned. And you really embody that and live that, don't you? And it strikes me that that's a part of your business philosophy, and part of what's made you successful is that you don't just listen to it as an interesting aside, you actually apply it.
Thanks for that, Matt. I mean, there's actually one of the most well-known Wim Hof instructors. She said to me the other day that you're the one that's the most authentic, and I took that as a really good compliment, because we all mess up and screw up. It's just about being honest with it. But the business for me is not a company. Okay, it's helping to provide a living for me and put food on the table for the kids. But it's more a playground to explore all the fantastic things that are out there in the world, and how you can keep the body young, or reverse aging, or your spirituality, or just your journey, and helping to find inner peace.
Yeah. So you were obviously around that sort of early 2000 mark. You're exploring the Czech teachings, learning a lot of that yourself. Obviously, were inspired enough to put on some seminars in Denmark, and then become the distributor for the Czech materials.
Yeah.
That was presumably in parallel to you setting up the newsletter and other elements of the business.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Well, when I sold my company in 2004, it was a bit of a scary time, because I just become a father for the first time.
Right, yeah.
And you possibly experience this, Archie, when you have kids. As the male, you're the hunter-gatherer. The lady is more making the home, and I don't mean that ladies should stay home and make the home, but I think there's something in the male genes that he feels he has to be the hunter-gatherer and go and put food on the table. So never having to think about money, I had to start, okay, the very good income that I had has gone. How do I buy nappies and clothes for this little one? So the working with Paul and your dad when he came over and taught for us as well was like a good step in building the foundation for something to work on. And we had Paul here, several times, and I think we had some of the biggest audiences he'd ever spoken to, which was probably because the market here was really ripe for it, and possibly because it was part of my calling, and I was good at explaining, this guy, even though he's a bit crazy, he's got a system that really works.
Do you think in Denmark it's got a larger population of people who want to, who care about their health?
I think that's a really good intuitive question, Archie, and I don't mean to upset the viewers, but in the UK, most of the population is living in cloud cuckoo land. The country is called Great Britain, but it should be renamed Second Class Britain. If you look at the Scandinavian lifestyle and what's here, I mean, when I take my kids home, sometimes they're absolutely shocked by what they see, and it's a shame, because in the UK they have more than enough resources to make one of the best countries on the planet. But if the 1% keeps all the money to themselves and doesn't invest in the rest, then that's just unfortunately what's going to happen. Now, I'll give you an example. When I was in Scotland, I used to play in the National Badminton Centre, and we had 6 badminton courts in Glasgow. Only 6. The only place with badminton courts. The rest were like multi-halls. It was in an old ship factory. Where I live in Denmark, the club that I play in, how many badminton courts do you think it has?
12.
Good guess. It's actually 14. Okay, so if you were to put a pointer in a piece of paper and draw 10 kilometers round from where I live, how many exclusive badminton halls do you think there are, Isabella?
I have no idea.
Pick a number.
More than 12.
There's 70. 70. So that's why a little country of 5 million can produce world and Olympic champions. Now, it's not just badminton. There's indoor tennis courts. There's football. It's paradise here. It's not that everything's right. It's a really socialist country, which is good on one hand because it means that everybody gets lifted up in the community. But on the other hand, there's a lot that take that don't give.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing that I've heard about Scandinavian countries, I'm not sure if it's just a stereotype, but like the crime rate's really low and everything's like really, like you were saying when you went to Denmark, that you went out in the morning and all the streets were completely clean.
Mm.
Yeah.
People leave.
It's better. It's better than the UK, but it is. We've got beautiful nature. We don't have the mountains that they have in Scotland or in Switzerland, whatever. But the nature's really good. There's good education. Are the education kidding the kids perfectly? No, but it's still good. I'd like to see them teach the kids some real stuff. Like, and I say to Isabella, "Hey, Isabella, what's your purpose in life?" Instead of teaching you all about biology or mathematics, and asking Archie if he knows about what money actually is and how it's just an exchange of energy and things. But all in all, it's just paradise to live in. Crime rate is low, hospitals are good, still allopathic, but if I got sick, I'd rather go to a hospital in Denmark than one in the UK. My sister's an emergency consultant not far from where you guys live, and she said it's just like falling apart.
Right. Yeah.
And the prisons, is that a thing?
I haven't been lately, and I'm not planning to go. So but I think I know that there's people from Eastern Europe that don't mind getting caught for crime in Denmark, because a prison in Denmark's more like a hotel in certain parts of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, and actually, one of the things I think you were alluding to, Arch, is that when I used to teach in Sweden, I would often look out to the park that was just outside the hotel where they put me up, and people would cycle in and leave their bikes in the park to go into work in the town. And I one time I noticed they don't lock them up, and they just leave their bike against the fence, go into work, come back, pick up their bike, and go home. And I'm like, my God, you could not do that here in the south of England. I don't know about other parts of England, but I've had many bikes stolen that have been fully locked up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And when you go into Copenhagen in the morning on a summer's day, that is thousands of people biking.
Yeah.
And that's a really good answer to the question that you and Isabella have asked, Archie, is that in every road there's a cycling lane, there's a bike lane.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody can bike without worrying about getting knocked down by a car.
Yeah.
So I hope a visionary who's good at building something will lead the UK and the other countries in Europe, because it's not that it can't be done. It's just the will, because the resources are there, but everybody has to contribute. I like to use an analogy of everybody's invited to dinner. You don't necessarily have to pay for the food, but are you going to set the table, make the dinner, or clean up afterwards? It's important that everybody contributes.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff. Okay, so we started out as kind of co-students, as it were, on the Czech journey. You then became distributor to Denmark. I then eventually got into faculty for the Czech Institute, and one of the first courses I was teaching was out with you in Denmark. In fact, it might even have been my very first course that I taught was out with you. And
he was very green, Isabella, but he did a good job.
Thank you. And then it wasn't actually the first course I taught, but I do recall it was one of the first courses. I came in wearing a pair of fifes. So I just got back from New York teaching out there, and I walked in wearing a pair of the classic fifes, and your reaction was something like, "What the hell are those?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, they're fifings," and you said, "Well, are they any good for you?" And I was saying, "Yeah, absolutely. They allow the foot to function like it's barefoot, but it gives you a bit of protection." And
I remember the exact words, Matt, and the exact words were, "Where the F did you get those?" And before you could answer, I said, "Why the F didn't I think of that?" Because I just knew intuitively, wow, that was something that was so good for the body.
Yeah. And also they stand out, don't they? Because they're so different to what you see on a day-by-day basis. And so we always used to say when we distributed them that they had that sort of Marmite effect where, some people love them because they stand out, some people hate them because they don't want to stand out. But more specifically, the function, I think, is phenomenal. And anyway, so the story there was that you said, I've got to get distribution rights for these for Denmark. And I said, well, look, I've actually been in touch with Vibram in the US because I've been writing a chapter for a textbook talking about natural rehabilitation, natural evolutionary approaches to rehabilitation. And so I'd actually been doing some research into the benefits of barefoot. So I had a bunch of references. And when I saw the product, I thought, well, we should feature this product in the chapter because it's just an excellent rehabilitation tool. So I'd already spoken to Vibram, and this was Tony Post, who was the CEO in the US. And I said to him, look, if you'd like me to feature them in this chapter, then let me know. And I can get my models who I'm taking photos of to wear them in the pictures. So he said, well, what benefits are there to these 5 fingers? And so I started explaining the benefits via email. And he said, well, do you have references for that? And I was like, well, yeah, it's a medical chapter. So I've got medical references. So that was how I had made the contact. And so then I passed on the contact details to you. And the next thing I know, you've arranged a meeting for the next time I was out teaching with you, so we could meet with a representative from the Italian distributor. I forget the guy's name now, but we met with him. And that was where we negotiated distribution rights for each of us, you to Denmark and me to the UK. So that was quite a thing. But then, then that journey continued. So why don't you sort of explain your journey with the 5 fingers and with footwear and so on since then?
It was an amazing journey with the 5 fingers because I think it's the best product in the sporting world because of what it can do for the body in terms of helping you to move naturally and can give a lot of people their health back in loads of different ways. So, we've had a really good ride on it. And one of the best things was actually meeting the young Italian inventor of 5 fingers called Robert Fleary. Learning about his story of natural movement in the mountains and how he's developed the 5 fingers from the original classic, which is maybe a little bit clumsy, to his masterpiece, which is the KSO Evo, which basically fits like a glove on the foot.
That was an amazing story, wasn't it? Actually, we would get him on the podcast at some point. But Robert was he a design student? I forget what he was.
He was a design student, and I think he was doing his thesis or something at Vibram, where he came up with this second skin.
But what I recall was that he was working in the Italian Alps as a lumberjack in his holidays. So he was doing lumberjacking and was walking up the trails in his big lumberjack boots. And what he found was that they got really obviously hot and sweaty and they were heavy. And all he wanted to do at the end of the day was to walk back down the trail barefoot. But what he found was that it was a bit flinty and a bit uncomfortable. And so as much as it felt nice, it also felt a little bit too much sometimes. And so he just thought if I could develop a kind of second skin, just so I could still feel the ground, feel the contours of the ground, but without the risk of the sharpness and the unpleasantness of these sharp flints against my foot, then that would be amazing. And so then he used his design skills to develop the first prototype, which he took to a bunch of different companies, but he was quite near Milan, which is where Vibram are based. So he actually took it to them, and it was Marco Bramani. That's right.
Yeah, the owner of the company,
who actually saw something in them. So Marco Bramani is the grandson of Vitali Bramani, which is where Vibram comes from, right? So it's like Adidas, which is formed by Adi Dassler, and Vibram is by Vitali Bramani. Anyway, so Marco Bramani is a sailor and basically said those would be great for the boat, because it's great to be barefoot on a boat, but when it gets wet, it gets slippery. So that was that was where that came from, and it all took off from there for Robert and for Vibram. Yeah. So how about what sort of came after that, Alan? Because one of the things that we found in distribution, and I'm sure you have had a similar experience, is that you can't be dependent entirely on one brand, or you can, but it's higher risk. You need to diversify a little bit. So
we diversified in different ways, and offering toe socks, other quality barefoot shoes. And one of the things that I tried, because it was something that we had a common bond with Matt, was the earthing. And Robert Fleary, unfortunately, was the only one at Vibram that really understood about earthing. And together we looked at making a rubber sole that could transmit the natural healing energy from the ground into the foot. And we did it partially, but there wasn't enough information there wasn't enough interest in Vibram to take that further. And I think it's kind of interesting in that Vivo Barefoot have just come out with a grounding boot. How it's working or not, I'm not sure, and whether it actually truly works, I'm not sure either, because we'd need to test it.
Yeah, right. So I remember going out to meet with Luca Piani, who was one of the top guys in the Milan office around 2008, 2009, and taking some papers with me to show him the benefits of earthing, and how, if they could instill kind of earthing technology into the five fingers, it would be like the perfect barefoot shoe, because it has all the biomechanical benefits of the toe dexterity and the flexibility and everything else, but also the earthing benefits, which is what you lose when there's a rubber sole, right?
Yeah.
And he was kind of interested, but it wasn't the direction they were going. And I spoke to Tony Post about it, and I spoke to various people across several years, and it just seemed like there was never quite the appetite there. But so, and obviously you had similar experience with Robert. You couldn't quite get it across the finish line, but then ultimately,
Robert wanted to, but internally in Vibram there wasn't the interest, and it's a shame, because like earthing's the hidden elixir of health, where very few people actually understand how much gold there is for just taking your shoes off and running around on either grass or sand or stone. It's one of the healthiest things you can do, and something that we've been programmed to do since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
So at the moment on TikTok, there's like this trend about how magnesium, if you rub it on your feet at night, it's supposed to be good for you. And we spoke about it today, didn't we? How it's an electrolyte. Is that right? Yeah. And I was just wondering if that has if the earthing shoes have similar benefits to what magnesium would. Is there any?
To be honest, you need to ask your dad, because he's smarter than I am. But I would doubt that it's as healthy as earthing, because if we explain in simple terms what earthing is, it's the natural skin contact to the earth, and the earth has got like a healing energy battery in it. So when you've got any part of skin, hands or feet, or on contact with the earth, it's basically like taking antioxidants through the feet instead of the mouth. And we know now through science and medicine that inflammation is the cause of most disease. And the scientific studies have shown within 30 minutes to an hour, you can virtually switch off all inflammation in the body by just having skin contact to the ground. And it's mind-blowing how healthy it is. And it's also mind-blowing about how few people know about it. And that's one question I wanted to ask you, Isabella, is why don't you think that many people know about the healing benefits of the earth?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know.
Archie?
I think maybe it's because people don't like the thought of going barefoot. So as soon as they hear that, it's their brain sort of switches off and maybe thinks it's a bit spiritual or or hippie, so they don't fully like interact with it. But I'm not sure.
But
I think the real reason is that it's free. You can do it anywhere, anytime. It feels absolutely wonderful, but you can't put it in a bottle, put a label on it, and sell it to someone else. So there's
Yeah.
no money to be made off something that's free.
Very
right.
true.
Can't commodify it, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also
And-
think it's about time as well. Like I don't think people would think I'm going to get outside for half an hour barefoot, like because they've got too much going on all the time.
Exactly.
It's not a good
Exactly.
excuse.
Well, and this is one of the things that we used to talk about with the five fingers is that you could give someone some foot exercises, for example, because a lot of people have flat feet or overpronating feet. In fact, about 80% of people have that, and so
Or a sore back.
yeah, or sore backs. I mean, there's loads of knee pain is another one, which is very common and can be helped by going barefoot. But so the point is that you could say, oh, do these exercises. It will take you 15, 20 minutes a day. And most people won't commit to that because it's too much time, right? But if you said, well, wear your five fingers for 10, 15 minutes a day or for an hour or for the whole day or whatever it might be, then they get the same sorts of benefits just by being barefoot in inverted commas, because it stimulates the muscles in the foot, and those muscles across time will get stronger. So really what you're doing is you're migrating the individual's physiology towards the environment within which they evolved to function, right? That's what five fingers do. That's what earthing mats do. That's what earthing shoes do, is that they provide a solution that means the person doesn't particularly have to change their lifestyle. They can integrate it into their lifestyle, but it gives them benefits which migrate their physiology towards that environment within which they've evolved to thrive, right? And so that's I think the huge benefit of things like earthing mats that you can have under your desk. So you don't have to be outside for 2 hours a day. You can have your feet on an earthing mat, for example, like we have right now. Did you notice that?
Oh wow,
That is
sneaky.
an earthing mat below us that we have our feet on. Well, seeing as we're called FC2O AI, perhaps we should use AI to help us with our understanding of our various product ranges. So here is AI's take on earthing. So here we are on ChatGPT. So let's tap in a question on earthing. Tell me in less than 200 words the benefits of earthing. Of earthing. Okay, let's see what it's got to say. Okay, so earthing, also known as grounding, involves direct skin contact with the Earth's surface, e.g. walking barefoot on grass or soil, or using conductive systems that transfer the Earth's electrons into the body. Research suggests that earthing offers several health benefits. Okay, so let's read those out. So number one, reduced inflammation. By absorbing electrons from the Earth, earthing may neutralize the free radicals, reducing inflammation and promoting healing. Okay. Number two, improve sleep. Earthing helps regulate circadian rhythms and cortisol levels, often leading to better sleep and increased energy. Number three, stress reduction. Direct contact with the earth may lower stress levels by reducing cortisol, fostering a sense of calm and well-being. Number four, pain relief. Earthing may alleviate chronic pain by reducing inflammation and improving circulation. Number five, heart health. Grounding can improve blood flow, reduce blood viscosity, and potentially lower blood pressure, benefiting cardiovascular health. And number six, enhanced immunity. Some studies suggest that earthing enhances immune function by reducing inflammation and supporting recovery from illness or injury. Overall, earthing is a simple, natural way to support physical and emotional well-being. So there you go. That is an independent AI take on the whole earthing concept. And what you can really see as a general theme is that earthing helps to reduce this micro voltage that's held in the body. When that is dropped through earthing or grounding, then your cortisol levels will drop. When cortisol levels drop, your inflammation drops. It means you're more calm, you're less fight flight. So your stress reduces, your pain reduces, the blood viscosity decreases. And because stress actually inhibits immune function, then your immunity is facilitated. So there we go. There's a nice little summary And a good reason why getting outside in your bare feet, or using an earthing mat in your office or in your home, or an earthing sheet in your bed, or indeed getting a pair of earthing shoes, can be very beneficial to your health and your happiness. So if you want to get your hands on a pair or get your feet in a pair, head over to mattwalden.com, go to the product section, and I think you'll like what you see, and you'll like even more how they feel and how they make you feel. Yeah. So, and as Alan just said, that reduces inflammation. That's very well documented. But I suppose to your original question, Bella, when you're talking about the magnesium, magnesium is an electrolyte, so it has an electrical properties. All minerals do. And so, yeah, you're probably getting it's a similar process. You rub magnesium into your feet, it will provide electrolytes to the body. But that's only one electrolyte, right? Whereas when you're walking across the ground, you're getting a whole array of free electrons coming from the ground. So that's what Alan was just saying. That's kind of like your antioxidants coming into the body. But you also get the benefits. You're dumping microvoltage from your body. So right now, all four of us are sat in front of our computers. We're sat inside our homes, which means that there's electrical circuits around us, which means that if we're wearing rubber-soled shoes, then we will be accumulating essentially microvoltage in our tissues. And that microvoltage is kind of like electrical charge that excites cells and increases our cortisol output, which just makes us slightly more on edge, slightly more inflamed, slightly more fight-flight. And if we can take our shoes off and put them on the earthing mat or step outside barefoot, that's where we dump the microvoltage, and that helps with inflammation and so on. So that's kind of the rationale behind it. So I think there's definitely a link with that magnesium thing that you're talking about, but there's a lot more benefits to just stepping outside barefoot. Yeah.
I also have a question for both you and Alan. How would it help an elite athlete, like with if an elite athlete decided to start earthing? What benefits would they see?
They would basically recover faster, and they would reduce the stress in their body, and they would boost their immune system, so there'd be less chance of getting sick. And I think also for the general population, part of the reason why people are so sick is because they've lost the connection to nature.
Yeah.
And just taking your shoes off and walking on the grass or the sand, you start to connect to the source that our ancestors always had, because they walked around on bare feet or in leather skinned like moccasins. And when they slept at night, it wasn't on a nice comfy bed. It was on the ground with some skin of animals to keep them warm if it was cold. So we've basically, over the last couple of 100 years, and especially since rubber-soled shoes started being the norm in the 60s, lost our connection to nature and to the earth.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, how is this not common knowledge if it's going to be so beneficial for people?
I'm flabbergasted that more people are not earthing and looking at the health benefits of earthing. But again, it's like we're in a culture that you go to the doctor and it's not necessarily. I mean, medicine's got its faults as well, because it's based on treatment, not prevention. But it's also because of the customers they're getting. I think probably 90% of people that go to the doctor expect a pill to cover up the symptoms that they've got, so they can carry on with the unhealthy lifestyle that they have, instead of thinking about, okay, how can I take the power into my own hands and look after my own body? And for me, and more people that I know, getting outside into nature and doing it in bare feet is one of the best things you can do for your body and soul.
Yeah. I think it's a kind of collective psychosis or hypnosis, perhaps a collective amnesia, because our default, of course, was to be barefoot or in touch with the ground. In my studies of footwear, I've been using footwear for about 40,000 years, but really rubber footwear for about 40 years, maybe 50 years now. And so, prior to that, it was primarily leather soles, which are electrically conductive, or can be, depending on the thickness of them and so on. So, the point being that, if you think about what's healthy to eat these days, well, it's organic food. 100 years ago, that would have just been called food, right? Because there were no non-organic foods. Everything was organic. And, we talk about earthing. Well, that's what people did naturally 100 years ago. We talk about avoiding blue light. Well, that's what people did. They just weren't exposed to blue light apart from the natural blue light from the sun. So there's all of these things that have emerged as a result of this society and the kind of technologies that we're exposed to. And we're almost having to rediscover nature. So there's this kind of default that was the norm, and that's, I think, why people don't know about it. Yeah, I mean, also, I think both of you, Alan and Archie, have kind of touched on this idea of connection and feeling connected to the broader world. And I think that's why there's this kind of hippie connection, often with barefoot, is this idea that, we might see it as a little bit unusual or perhaps even backward for the reasons we were just saying, right? That modern people wear modern shoes with air pads and gel pads and the latest grip technology and all the rest of it. And the hippies go barefoot. It's like, whoa, what a bunch of weirdos, right? But actually, they're the smart ones. And one definition of spirituality is a sense of connection to the greater whole, right? And if you think of what barefooting is, well, it's a sense of connection to the earth, which is the greatest whole that we have here. It's like it is the whole earth that we're connecting to. It's not just the ground under our feet, but we're connecting to the entire planet when we touch our feet to the ground.
Yeah.
And Mother Earth is, she is so wise. If we only listen to what she's got to say. I mean, the other day I was going for a walk with the dog in the forest, and the amount of people that I passed that had something stuck in their ears, so they're listening to a podcast or music or whatever. So that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're in the forest listening to something on your telephone, are you hearing the rustling of the leaves? Are you hearing the birds singing? Are you hearing the swish of the water? All these things that are there to, de-stress the body together with the beauty around you. And people are just not present. And I think in the next 10 years, we will see an exponential increase in people that start to really get interested in nature and probably taking the best of what technology's got to offer, but going back to basics with the way they live their life.
Yeah, absolutely. This kind of ties in with forest bathing and that kind of thing, doesn't it? Does they call it vitamin G is grounding?
Exactly, and I think you'll see parks in major cities where people can walk in the grass or the stones in their bare feet. You'll see people using less sun cream or no sun cream and just building up their tolerance to the sun early in the spring, and not blocking their body for the healing energy and the vitamin D you get from the sun.
Definitely, yeah. So you were telling me that you saw was it a TikTok about Haaland?
Yeah, that's why I brought up the elite athletes and the benefits, because there was a video of Erling Haaland and how he does it, it was on TikTok, which is a really good thing because it means that people are going to see.
Do you remember what was he saying, that it helps him recover, or
I'm not sure whether it was him saying anything. It was just a video of, I think it was a photo actually, of just him with one of his football teammates, just with their feet on the grass and just obviously recovering.
Yeah.
He's a really smart guy. I mean, there's pictures of him as well with his mouth taped. So he understands the importance of nasal breathing, and there's no coincidence that he is as good as he is, because he's like my friend that just won the Olympics for the second time. He is just going all in, looking at any natural way he can to improve his performance.
Yeah. It's really fascinating, isn't it? Because you look at people like Ronaldo as well, and he, there's you've probably seen the photo of him. He's got 5 fingers and he uses Swiss balls, and it's kind of if you're that good, normally you've found all of the top things that are going to help you. Like there's other stuff with Haaland where he's wearing blue light blocking glasses as well. So he's obviously just into the whole thing of how can he optimize his physiology and realize his potential as a human being.
Yeah.
Which is exactly, we look at Ronaldo with the water thing. Do you remember that with the Coke and the water? He was sat down to do an interview post-match, and there's these 2 bottles of Coke lined up, and he kind of looks at them as goes like this, moves the bottles, and goes agua, and puts water on the table, and you're just like, oh, that's so perfect. That dented Coca-Cola's profits quite significantly, but that's what people that are serious about their health and their performance do. They look for every marginal gain.
Yeah, I mean, I had as a guest with my tribe that meet every second week. One of my friends was in town, and he's the 4-time world freediving champion and holds the Guinness World Record for how long you can hold your breath underwater: 20 minutes with oxygen, 10 minutes without. Swam 72 meters under the Arctic ice. He's been working with some of the top sports people in Denmark, teaching them, because most sports people are breathing through their mouth, but nasal breathing just gives them so much more performance, and not only that, it gives them a much better health off the court as well.
Yeah.
What do you mean when you say 20 minutes with oxygen and 10 minutes without?
Well, if you just breathe normally and go into the water, he can do 10 minutes there, or you can breathe pure oxygen, and once you've done that, he can do 20 minutes.
See,
it's mad, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. But see, we touched on spirituality earlier and talked about sense of connection to the greater whole. But a way I like to think of being spiritual, or a spiritual sense in life is that you are realizing your potential. So if there's a purpose to life, it is to realize your potential. If you waste your potential, then you kind of you're compromising on what's possible. And so when you look at your sort of Haalands and your Ronaldos and your freediver friend, what they're doing is they are realizing their potential. They're optimizing what they can achieve by dotting every I and crossing every T. And so that's a kind of spiritual act in a way, because they're not only achieving what they can achieve as an individual, but they're inspiring others through that. And so inspiration is literally bringing spirit in to, or giving spirit to other people, so they can bring in spirit and inspiration, right?
Well, that's why I'm always running around with no shoes on, doing the garden in no shoes, even in the winter, running around in the snow, bare feet, not for long, but just 30 seconds here, a minute there, jumping in the ocean in the winter. There's loads of free things you can do that are healthy for you, and you actually, once you've overcome the fear of it, you actually start to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if somebody told me 5 years ago winter bathing was actually enjoyable, I thought they were nuts.
So let's try looking at it the other way around. What are the dangers of earthing? Earthing, while generally considered safe, can pose some potential risks. Number 1, electrical shock. If earthing is done through conductive devices plugged into outlets, there is a risk of electrical shock, particularly if the outlet is improperly grounded or faulty. And indeed, this is another reason why it's best to plug anything like an earthing mat directly into the ground. So most of the companies that provide these products, they offer an earthing rod that you can put into your garden, and a long wire that goes out through whatever window. I've got one out of my bedroom window and going down the wall into our little rose bed outside, and that means there's no risk of electrical shock from that. And also what it does, it minimizes the exposure to dirty electricity, which is the electricity that's held in the house system. And there's some studies to show that even though there are benefits to using the earthing through the sockets, which may be your only option if you live in a tower block or something like that, or you're unable to put a rod in the ground outside for whatever reason, maybe it's all concreted over, then that's a good second best. But there is extra exposure to the sort of dirty electricity from spillover from other parts of the electrical circuits in the house or the building. Okay, so part 2, infection. Walking barefoot outdoors, especially in polluted or contaminated areas, can expose you to bacteria, parasites, or other harmful microorganisms, leading to infections or skin injuries. Of course, this is true. It's pretty rare. If you're healthy, then the chance of you getting an infection, even if your foot is cut, is low. But if you do have a cut, obviously it makes sense to cover it if you're out and about, or if your immune system's low for whatever reason, perhaps a health condition, or perhaps because you've been traveling or sleep deprived because you just got a new baby. That's a good time to be more cautious with things like going barefoot. Number 3, allergies or irritation. Contact with certain surfaces like grass or soil may trigger allergic reactions or skin irritations, particularly in sensitive individuals. Number 4, weather exposure. So earthing outdoors during extreme weather conditions, e.g. storms, lightning, or excessive heat, can be dangerous. Grounding through thunderstorms could expose you to higher risk of lightning strikes, particularly if you're on the top of a hill where there's no trees and you're the highest point. And then number 5, cuts and injuries. Walking barefoot increases the likelihood of stepping on sharp objects, glass or stones, which can cause cuts, bruises, or foot injuries. So to minimize risks, earthing should be done with caution, especially in unfamiliar or hazardous environments, such as in the dark. Be cautious there. But, the obvious solution to that is to wear a barefoot shoe, and that mitigates pretty much all of those risks that we discussed. And so if you'd like to look at the range we've got, then take a peek here. So if you want to get your hands on a pair or get your feet in a pair, head over to mattwalden.com, go to the product section, and I think you'll like what you see, and you'll like even more how they feel and how they make you feel.
What are the benefits over the 5 fingers?
Of the earthing? For me, it's just the free electrons and the healing energy into the body. There are earthing shoes on the market. There's sandals and other sort of stuff. In collaboration with your dad, we made these in Portugal, which is a boot and a shoe. But as you can see, they're foot formed. So it's basically the first barefoot earthing shoe on the market. That's basically like a glove on your foot, and because it's a leather sole that's just been sewn, there's no plastic or rubber, there's no glue, so that allows the healing energy to come through the shoe into the body. If you glue it or you got rubber, then it just acts as a barrier.
Yeah.
And is there enough space for the toes to stay spread? Is that
Yeah. You can even have a toe spreader in them as well.
wow?
Yeah, and they're super comfortable. Really lovely feel on the foot. So obviously you've developed those. You've now got them in production, or you've had them produced, I should say.
Yeah, we found a really, really beautiful small shoe company in Portugal that can hand make them in small amounts.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And so we're going to have those available through our website as well. And we've also got an ebook that you have put together, which we can share with people, which gives them a bit more information on earthing. So that's fantastic.
With the talking about the space for the toes, is there also another feature where it's like the shoes aren't too flat or anything? Like they'll actually keep your foot the right shape.
Yeah, they'll keep your foot the right shape. I mean, some people need to use correct toes or other toe correctors if they've deformed their foot by going in incorrect footwear. But it's just basically actually like a second skin on your feet with the minimal amount of protection. If you stand in a sharp stone, you'll feel it, but it's not going to puncture the skin because it's got the leather there. And the interesting thing is, if you measure how well the shoes earth when you first get them, and measure it a week later, once you've been using them, they earth a lot better after a week, because the body fluids and the sweat allow more of the energy to come through the soul into the body.
And that was something I was going to ask you about or mention, was that when I stayed with you and you showed me the first prototypes, you actually used a voltometer or voltmeter to measure that, and that was really impressive to see the effect. Can you just explain it a little bit? The sorts of measurements that you get with these things.
Well, the voltometer, you're using it with the earthing shoe and an earthing mat. And if you go and stand on the earthing mat with a normal rubber shoe, I get between 6 or 7 on the voltometer, depending on how close I am to the computer, how much dirty energy is coming from the computer. If I put my bare feet on it, it goes to virtually 0. If I put an earthing shoe on that's totally new, it'll be about 2 or 3, and then once I've used it for a week, it's down to about 0 as well.
Yeah.
So it's I have an earthing mat under my computer as well. I sleep in an earthing mat too. It's just a beautiful way of getting rid of all the dirty energy out of the body and keeping yourself connected to the ground.
Yeah. Joe, one thing I've noticed about using earthing sheets in bed is that it stops the need to go for a pee in the night for me. And I was thinking, initially I just thought it was a bit of a coincidence. Maybe I'm drinking a bit less. And then after a few months, you start thinking, well, I just don't need to go in the night anymore. And I think what that is that inflammation makes you excrete more water, right? And so I think it mobilizes the water more effectively. Whereas when I think you are earthed, I think it helps to align the water and optimize its function in terms of structuring it within the cells of the body, so that you don't have this excess water, which then ends up filling up your bladder and ends up with you having to get up in the night. So I think that's an amazing. And when you think how important sleep is, if you can have an undisturbed night's sleep every night compared to a disturbed night's sleep, well, then that's a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think it's twofold, Matt. If you're going outside during the day and they've got skin contact or having earthing shoes on the ground, then that's going to help you sleep better. And then when you're sleeping on an earthing mat as well, it's going to be a cumulative.
Yeah, definitely. I think, a lot of what we've talked about today has been covered in the Earthing book by Clint Ober, right? So, we talked about athletes and recovery. We talked about sleep, just sort of health in general, inflammation being a primary cause of most of the modern ailments, from diabetes to cancer to heart disease to stroke. And Clint Ober has really dug into that research and created a lot of that research in his book, The Earthing,
and funded the research himself, because nobody else will. I mean, the guy deserves a Nobel Prize for how many people he's helped on the road to better health with what he's done.
Absolutely, but you know him, don't you? You've had him. You had him to talk, or you just I forget what the connection.
No, I'm a nerd, so if I want to know about ice bathing, then I go to Holland and jump in an ice bath with Wim Hof. When I want to know about earthing, I flew to the States, and Clint Ober was very generous and gave me a couple of hours of his time.
Oh wow, very cool.
In Palm Springs in 45 degrees.
Really? Yeah. It sounds like a good place to meet.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we will have to get him on the podcast as well to find out more about the sort of technical details that he can share with us. But that was brilliant, Alan. Thanks very much for that. So these new earthing shoes, which you've developed, and I had a little bit of an input in terms of, I suppose, encouraging you to do it and providing some of that original research. They're now available on your site for people that are anywhere in the world. People in the UK, we've got them on our site as well, with a little lead time if they want to purchase them. And then ultimately, presumably, you'll be sort of pushing them out to the rest of the world
slowly but surely when we find the right partners.
Yeah, perfect. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
You're welcome. And I'd like to finish by inviting myself to your house on the 24th of December, because I'm going to be a few miles away from you for Christmas.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes. Come by. Absolutely. Yeah. You're very welcome.
Because I'm desperate to see Bella running around in the bare feet in the snow.
Yeah. Exactly. Perfect. All right. Thanks very much, Alan.
Take care.
Take
Love
care.
to meet the kids, Matt.
Yeah.
Lovely to meet you.
Yeah. Great stuff. Bye.
Bye.
So I hope you enjoyed that, our first episode of FC2O AI with Alun Biggart. We've got plenty more in the pipeline for you. So if you don't want to miss those, then hit subscribe. And of course, if you have time to leave us a little review, that would be fantastic. Apparently that is supposed to be something that really helps to get a bit of traction with these podcasts. And then, of course, we've got the products that we mentioned. We didn't go into too much detail, but there's the Earthing shoe range, which you can see on mattwalden.com. And of course, you can get them from there, or if you're elsewhere in the world, you can, outside of the UK, then you can get them from Alun's site, which is alun.dk. So I think that covers it for now. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next show.